Here's the truth. If you want to see spiritual revival break out within your church or a spiritual awakening happen in your city, it's got to start with you. Often when we think about revival, like I said, we're thinking about it on this corporate stage, the city being revived, a specific church being revived. But what I truly believe is that until each one of us experiences a revival in our own heart, we are not going to be able to do anything that's going to be of significant value. If we continue to think that everyone else is the problem, everyone else needs to get on board and get on fire for Jesus, while we ourselves are lacking, then there's going to be no growth. There's going to be no fruit that really springs up because the root system's bad. Inside of us, we have this root system, and if it's not flourishing in the love of God, then the fruit that gets produced from our personal tree and from the tree of the church is going to be severely lacking. So, revival, first and foremost, is an inside job. I love what the book of Matthew says here in chapter 7, verse 3 through 5. Jesus says this. He says, "Why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' and behold, the log is in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." And this has been something very powerful to consider in my life, because when I think about my own personal life and the way that I've walked with God, there's parts of me that have this sense of pride of, I'm really going for this. I'm really pursuing Jesus. The problem is elsewhere. But that's not what Jesus is asking us to do here. He's saying, hey, even if you really are pursuing me much harder than other people, there's still going to be these specks, these logs that we have inside of ourselves. And until we remove those, we're going to be very insufficient in how we can help other people. And so, really, the process of revival or awakening within a city is when enough people in their own heart really decide that they're going to pursue Jesus. They really take a hard look, examine their life, and begin to cultivate that personal revival. And then in a region, if enough people begin to do that, the power of the Spirit is going to be made manifest, and we're going to see signs and wonders. We're going to see people coming to the Lord. It's just going to be an overflow of what's happening on the inside of us. So, if we're really looking to revive our churches, awaken the lost, and really see an outpouring of the Spirit in our city, we recognize that it first and foremost comes down to us. But here's the problem. Oftentimes, we don't even recognize our own need for personal revival. Like I said before, I've been in a place oftentimes where I felt like I've got it all together. Everyone else needs to get on board. That's not the heart position that Jesus wants us to cultivate here. I love this psalm. Psalm 139, 23 through 24 says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxious thoughts, and see if there be any hurtful way in me, and lead me in the everlasting way." Now, the psalmist here obviously is saying, hey, I understand that my life is not perfect. I understand that there are flaws, there are inconsistencies in me. Search me, God. Show me what these things are. Reveal them to me so that I know what I can do to change. There is a preacher that I really respect named Mike Bickle, and one of the things that has captured me is this phrase that he's used in his sermons before, and he says, "Shock me now, God, don't shock me then." And what he's talking about is reveal these areas that I need to change now. Reveal them to me now, God, so that I can change them, and not when I come to the judgment seat and I see you face to face. I don't want to know about them then. There's nothing I can do then. Show me them now. Now, after God reveals these things to us, which if we really pursue him in an intentional way, he will reveal this to us. After that, there is going to be, if you are really connecting with the Lord and if you really have the holiness of God in your heart and mind, there's going to be this sense of spiritual mourning or poverty in spirit. This is where the Beatitudes lead off. We think of the Beatitudes as kind of the constitution of the kingdom. This is the way, this is the path to personal revival. And this is really how it leads off. In Matthew 5, 3 through 4, it says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. I've always thought that that was a really interesting and unique way for the Beatitudes to start off. Like, okay, so I'm supposed to be poor in spirit and sad about things, and in some way I'm going to be following Christ better that way. But what God's revealed to me is until I recognize my own spiritual poverty, until I recognize that the holiness of God is so other than anything that I can really grasp, but yet He's calling me to be holy. Until I recognize that, I'm not going to really be able to move forward spiritually at all. Somebody who is prideful and believes that they're at the upper echelon of their spiritual walk, they won't feel any need to really go any deeper in God, to obey more, to study the scriptures. They'll believe that they're already there. And so that's why I think it starts out with this recognition of poverty, spiritual poverty, and this recognition of mourning on the inside of us. And like I said, the holiness of God is a crucial issue with this, because if we are coming at this really just comparing ourselves to other people, we may be far superior in a spiritual race, if you will, compared to our neighbors, compared to other people in the city, in our churches. But that's not what God is asking us to compare ourselves to. In 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 14 through 16, this is what Peter says: as obedient children, do not be conformed to the former lusts, which were yours in your ignorance, but like the Holy One who called you, be holy yourselves in all your behavior, because it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. We are called to compare ourselves to Christ. Christ was the perfect representation of what a life completely devoted to God looks like here on earth. And that is our standard. That is what we're going for. We're not going for Betty down the street or Joe in our Sunday school class and trying to compare ourselves to them. No, God's asking us to compare ourselves with Christ. Galatians chapter 6, verse 4 says, each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. We are just so used to looking at somebody else and either feeling really bad because we don't measure up to them, or feeling prideful because we're better than them. And God's saying, no, do away with this measurement system that you've created of measuring your ways against other people. Measure yourself against Jesus. He is the ultimate measurement. He is the guiding light for us. He is the person that we want to imitate and the person that we want to be like. And so when we're examining ourselves, we need to measure ourselves to Him. And if we do that, we're going to recognize, there are these areas in my life that I am not living up to that standard. And from that place, a healthy response is that spiritual mourning, that recognition of lack on the inside of us, that should cause us to propel and to go further and to deeper our intimacy and our love with God. These are the types of areas that I really want to encourage you to examine, so that you don't just rest on your laurels, but you truly pursue Jesus with everything that's inside of you.